Hey there. Before we get started, I just wanted to come on and ask you all a favor. In our research, we've discovered that the vast majority of you do not actually like and subscribe to our podcast. And so, if I could ask you to do so, I won't ask you for anything else. And I promise to make this podcast the best I can every day. Me and the team really strive to do that for you. And so, if you could do this for us, we would be eternally grateful. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Mickelle Weber, founder and auteur of House of Peregrine. Expat, immigrant, pioneer, none of these were a fit, but Peregrine describes what we are all about perfectly. Those that craft their life story with intention. I've spent the last 6 years in awe of the life-changing connections and stories I have experienced while living abroad, and believe it is time for this adventure to be recognized, celebrated, and elevated to the life stage that it is. Through these interviews, I hope to connect those living internationally more deeply to both the place they are living and with themselves and those around them. We cover everything from international finances and meaning-making to global parenting and relationships to make your time abroad more intentional, edifying, and full of beauty. Find us at houseofperegrine.com, where you can find more ways to connect with the ethos of Peregrine. I hope you enjoy today's guest. Let's get started. Today, I am very happy to welcome Karina Lagarrigue, sex therapist and mother, helping expatriated, cross-cultural, and frequently traveling couples and families to thrive. She is also in her third year of her PhD with a specialty in sensory processing sensitivity and expat motherhood. Living internationally is an additional load emotionally, no matter how you live it. Both the good and the bad times are amplified. This is a very vulnerable topic, so naturally I'm offering Karina's wisdom to the group to start conversations, and also to bring to light that you are not alone if any of what we talk about today resonates. Welcome, Karina. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for the invitation, Mickelle, and I hope that our little discussion of today can help many moms and families in general that are, experiencing the expatriated experience of being a mom, a dad, and even the children, I think, can benefit from acknowledging what's going on in the couple.
That's great. Well, I want to start out. I know quickly yourself, you've lived this life with your own children and your own marriage. And so tell me just quickly about the countries you've lived in and your own experience, and then I want to talk about your practice.
So my expatriation actually started with my own as a child. So I am already what we call the TCK. I'm pretty sure your community is familiar with it, but just in case, is that third culture kid, right? That child that grows up in a different country than the ones of their parents. So my mom is French and my dad is Spanish. And I moved for the first time when I was 3 weeks old. So they say that those family patterns are repeated. And then my second child also was moved around the world when he was only 3 weeks old. So I was born in Spain and I grew up between Spain, France, Portugal, and then a specific area of Spain that is the Canary Islands. So I am myself a third culture kid that has been experiencing global mobility. And then I just happened to do a little bit the same with my children when they were both born in Belgium. And then we were transferred to Ireland for a year. And then we are back in Spain, where my husband is from, in Catalonia, in an area that is very close to Barcelona. So this is my experience in first person as a child and as a mom so far, like traveling around the world.
And I've asked a number of people this, but I always get such rich answers. Can you tell me how you defined third culture kid?
So to me is that unique experience that actually we all share. So to me, it was a gift to learn about third culture kids because I am a very self-reflective person. I always ask my questions. I've asked myself questions about why do I do things in a certain way, or why do I experience things in a certain way, and that in so many ways are different from the majority of the people I am surrounded by. So at the beginning, a lot of it was explained by, maybe my traveling experiences and maybe my I had two different cultures that were there very present in my life, and I was traveling a lot back to France. But then acknowledging that feeling that I had, that I think is shared among the third culture kids, that is that feeling of not being French enough, and not being Spanish enough, and not being Canarian enough, and not being enough in anywhere you go, just left you that feeling that, okay, so there might be something wrong with me because I don't seem to fit anywhere. And when I learned about the third culture kid, it was like, well, actually, I fit perfectly with them. Like, I am exactly like them. I just experience the world in such a similar way. And it was a relief for me because I didn't have to look for any psychological explanation, for any situational explanation, any family system explanation. It was just what our heart created, that third culture that at the same time it's so similar to people that have experienced that upbringing, because we do share that very open mind, that facility for languages, that much more kind of accepting even differences in many other ways, right? In the way you do things, in the way you express yourself, in so many ways. I felt that all of a sudden I was understood, like everybody could get me, and I didn't have to explain. It was like, yeah, you don't have to give me a long explanation, where I felt like that for so long. Like, if I wanted to answer a question, I had to look for an eternal explanation to get to the point I wanted people to get. So that's what a third culture kid is for me.
Nice. I always wonder this. Do you think now there's third culture adults? Like that?
Yes,
Like,
that's what
do
we
you think?
are.
Yeah, that's what we are. But if you didn't grow up as a third culture kid and you're now like, I find that's what House of Peregrine is a little bit. It's like third culture adults that find themselves not belonging anywhere really with their parenting experience, their relationship experience, and their everything experience. And so that, I think our kids are third culture kids, but I wonder, like, what am I? Because I grew up in the same house my entire childhood and still felt different. And so that it's such a funny, I love the third culture notion. I just feel like I always was one, even though I grew up in the same house.
So
Not really.
I do think that we are kind of getting closer to understanding that the third culture kid doesn't necessarily requires mobility when it comes to international mobility. Like, we're seeing many similarities when we look at even in the same areas mobility. So even when you move houses in the same, let's say, the same in Catalonia, for instance, that's where I'm now, right? If you move houses, if you live in Barcelona city for a while, and then you go and move to the countryside, and then you go and live in the Pyrenees, and then you're going to have to still learn about that adaptability. You're going to still have to adjust over and over to a new environment, to new friends, to a new routine. And then there are some changes that happen also in children that are not necessarily mobile in that sense, but that will have mobility in their environment. So, for instance, what we know is those international children, right? They will go their entire life to the international school, but in that international school, there are going to be so many changes. Children that come and go, teachers that come and go, different languages, different cultures that are going to be part of your class, part of your weekends, if you get close to one of your friends, right? When people ask me about my best friend, I say, which one? How old are you asking me from? And well, this one was Belgium, and the other one was Irish, and the other one was Swedish. So there are many different way of developing that third culture upbringing, and that is not necessarily related to mobility. And I do think that there is still that mistake.
Yeah, interesting. My kids are just living my best life. That's all I'm saying. No, but I think that's such a beautiful way of putting it. And so so what you're doing now, I want to tell people about this. So I have been really dying to talk to you or someone like you, because I find that a lot of times what I was going through in my own relationship and what my friends were going through, we all felt like it was unique to us. But do you think, this is my question to you. I think that people underestimate the effect a move abroad or to another country, a new culture, has on your romantic relationship or your committed romantic relationship. So can you talk a little bit about that and maybe walk us through what that looks like and some of the things you see in your practice?
Yeah, so absolutely. Something I love starting with when I'm asked that kind of question is that I think too many times expatriation is confused with traveling. It's not the same. Like, you really need to depart with that clarity in your head that if you're going to move to another country and you're going to actually live there and you're going to actually invest yourself in whatever you're going to do there, even if it's just a project that seems to be, well, but it's going to be with the same culture and we're going to be in our little bubble, and you're still going to be out of your well-known comfort zone. And don't get me wrong, I do acknowledge that there are some challenges that are specific to those families that are experiencing that move, but it's kind of just exacerbating something that I think especially today's young couples have forgotten profoundly, and is that we are a species that is a constant evolution. And the person you meet where you're 16, 18, 20, 25 is not going to be the same that when she's 40, 45 or 50, or not even when she turns into a mom, for instance, or when he gets his job, career, dreamed position. Because there are some kind of milestones in our life that will have such an impact in ourselves and in how we develop, that are necessarily going to change the way we relate to other people too. And I do believe that this is exceptionally important to allow. Like, it is important that we allow those processes to occur, no matter whether you are going to stay in the same country or you're going to travel. But the truth is, Mickelle, that once you travel, those experiences that I have just defined to you as part of life, right? They're just doubled in intensity, in complexity, in challenges, because you're not only going through that life change and process that we were just discussing, are just part of human development, but you're going to have to adjust to something else, that new country, that new culture, that new reality. Those like uncountable things that you can't know in advance. So that's why I strongly advise people to really kind of understand that if you are going to move to a different country, it's not going to a holiday, a week out, a break in your routine. It's going to be much more important, and it's going to necessarily impact your life much more.
Yeah. And I think, I think people are usually open to that, but they don't know maybe the extent to what the changes it has to your personality, your relationship, your agreements sometimes have to change. And so what are some of the things that you think people aren't ready for usually? Like, what are the things that surprise these people? What are they coming to you trying to fix, I guess, or recover from?
So I would say the first thing that is common to all the couples I work with is that idea that they don't understand what's wrong if everything is perfect. Like, they have that, I don't know how to describe that, but that illusional idea that if you get everything settled in terms of material, in terms of economics, in terms of even a good environment to settle in, like a great school and a great group of moms and a great, like, if you have it all, right, why is it something feeling wrong? It's like, come on, we have it all. What's happening? We decided to come here. It's such a great environment. We're in the Bahamas. Like, come on, it's a dream life for everyone. Why are we struggling? What's the problem? And I would say that comes down from the idea that something that is on paper ideal will come with no struggle, especially in emotional backgrounds, like in the emotional field. It's like everything should be fine, because if everything outside is fine, everything inside should be fine too. And they don't acknowledge that although there is something amazing out there, there is a lot readjusting in here. Like, in your body, there are so many things that are going to require time to readjust to, even to something amazing. It's like when you take an ice cream. Ice cream is great, right? But if you swallow a big bowl of ice cream, well, your body has to readjust to the temperature, and it feels fizzy on your head, and it might hurt a little bit your throat. So it's like, yes, you're still eating an ice cream, but yet you need some time to adjust to it. So I would say that's the first thing I acknowledge that most of the couples I work with go through.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to ask you about is, do you think that people, what I've seen a lot is two working people will come
to a country for one person's job,
Mm.
and they have not negotiated who is going to be the supporting spouse and what being a supporting spouse is like. Do you see that? And how do you help people navigate that or prepare for it or recover from it? Because I can imagine most people come to you after they're struggling. But maybe talk a little bit about that adjustment, going from two like fully functioning adults who know what they're doing in the culture to a completely different arrangement.
Did you know that House of Peregrine has an app? It is full of resources, information, and products to make life as an international more connected and more intentional. As a member of House of Peregrine, you also now have access to exclusive discounts, products, guides, and events to make life more fun and connected. Simply download the app at houseofperegrine.com and save it to your home screen. Okay, back to the show.
Absolutely. So that's something that happens very often, and unfortunately we know that from data that many more times is the wife that is going to be that spouse, that supporting spouse, and as I like to call them, they become that emotional anchor. So that person that the traveling partner that is going to be the one that has the career and that has all this very highly demanding position, right, is going to be willing to come back to. So it's kind of not only being the spouse that goes and kind of leaves behind all their own projects and career and family and friends and routines and everything, but also coming to a position that is completely new. And as you were saying, that they have no clue about what is it actually going to take and why and how they're going to develop that role. But also there is another one that comes together with it that is very often forgotten, and is that emotional anchor that your partner is going to be expecting from you. So it's kind of a double challenge for the trailing spouse, because they're going to be grieving their own life, their own career, whatever other project they had maybe in the country they left, to accompany and to support their partner's professional career. But at the same time, they're going to be expected to be the strong one in the relationship, which makes it an additional challenge, because it's like, okay, so not only I am to be left by myself and with everything that is going on in me that, as you were saying, I have no idea what it is. It just feels wrong. It just feels annoying. It just feels that I'm irritated. It just feels that there is something going on that I don't know what it is. But they're going to have that external exigence of, come on, you don't even have to work. You're just at home. You just have that wonderful place to be. What's wrong with you? I'm the one that is tired. I'm the one that is traveling. I'm the one. So you should be the one that is receiving me and supporting me and giving me that sense of home, because I am the one that is all day long with people that I don't know. And they forget that even though they may not be having those kind of very high expectations in the job area, they're having very high expectation in the emotional one. And that's where many times I find that the couple is kind of finding troubles to communicate in the end, because the first thing is that both of them are not understanding, first of all, what is happening to them. Like even the career oriented and the one that is moving the couple abroad is not realizing that that's what he's doing. Like he's coming back and he's expecting her to be his support. He's not acknowledging that. He just comes out saying, I just want to be with my wife. That's it. It's like, no, you wanted to be with your wife that is happy, supportive, and well dressed and up for a dinner out. Well, maybe what she needs is to be at home crying herself out because she had a terrible, lonely day. So he's not acknowledging that many times, and she's not acknowledging and not understanding herself what is going on for her and what is she going through.
Yeah, because often it can be lonely, but also they're reading the emails in a different language. They're supporting the kids emotionally, because the kids' emotions are not taken into account in these moves often enough. There's no real playbook for how to move kids abroad, right? And so we're all kind of learning on the fly, first of all, the age our kids are at. We've never done that before, but then we're doing it in another culture.
And this, what I've experienced a lot also on the other side of that is there's a lot of really wonderful dads that are taking on this role for the first time. And I think that that is an extra challenge maybe for them because they aren't used to it, but also they're not socialized around helping people through emotional things. I think women are maybe more prepared for that, even if it's overwhelming. But then I see a lot of these dads that are learning a lot, having to learn on the fly, even maybe more. And so it's an interesting time. Okay, so what is the advice you give these couples? Is it really to start by appreciating what the other's going through, because it's never going to be the same as what you're doing in your home country or where you came from?
So what is interesting is that you added the children there. So I work with couples that have children and couples that don't have children. And indeed, what you were highlighting is something that is very common in those families where there are children in the dynamic, right? That adds that complexity that you were saying, that of course the wife may not only be feeling lonely because she's alone, but she's feeling lonely in the load that takes to readjust to a country for you and your children, and having that huge responsibility, right, to understand the functioning of the place, doctor appointments, schools, play dates, birthday parties, and so on, right? So something that I do recommend those families or couples when they come to me is that the first thing they have to acknowledge is what is going on with them. Like they really need to know at what point they're themselves, right? And what you were just acknowledging about the father, right? Realizing that, oh gosh, I'm not only in that new country where maybe I'm used to, right? Because maybe, for instance, let's take a diplomat, for instance, that are used to traveling around the world, right? And usually everything is fine. Like they go and they do their job and that's fine. And if they have to leave before their spouse is away, that's fine. But what happens when there are kids in the picture? Then it's not the same. Like if you're traveling before your family, well, you're going to have to stay connected to your kids somehow, because your wife knows where you're going and your wife understands that you're going to join him a little bit later. But what about the kids? They don't understand distances the same way. They many times in young ages, they don't have the concept of time. So they don't understand what it means to not see dad for a week or for a month or for even longer. So it does put another complexity when there are children in the picture. And the first thing is to acknowledge how challenging it is for you. Where are your own challenges? Where are you at in everything, in your job, in your partnership, in your relationship with your kids, in your relationship with your own parents too? How much of your life has to do with what your family was expecting from you to do, and how much has to do with what you actually want to do in your life, and that may be so distant if you stop for a minute and think about it instead of just do what you thought that you were meant to do. So it does require a first look inside, look and see what is happening with you. Where are you at? What are your challenges? Because it's very difficult otherwise to express it to your partner, because your partner is going to have kind of a biased idea of what is going on with you, because it's going to be from your own perspective. So it's going to be like, you going through that because that's what I'm feeling. But maybe what you're seeing is something completely different to what he is experiencing. It's just the way he's expressing it that is activating in you a certain reaction. So if you are able to understand what's going on with you, you're going to be much more efficient communicating it. And then it's going to be clearer for your partner of where are those challenges that then you have to face together. So if that's what's going on with you and that's what's going on with me, if what we are meant to do together is parenting our children in this way that we have decided, what are the challenges for the couple?
Yeah. And I see it as, I really think what I would do differently in my own life is set some intentions. Like, what are our, this is a new, it's not a new start because we're not new people, but this is an inflection point where we can really be intentional about what we're building, why we're here, the demands it's going to make on each of us, and agree to them, right? Agree to what is necessary. And I would have loved to have some guidance of like, what are the things we need to split? You know what I mean? Like, what are the things we're going to be, what are the extra jobs, you know? And so I think that for me, whenever I talk to people about this, and I've only been living abroad 6 years, but whenever I talk to people, I'm like, listen, this is a chance for a new start with an old person, but it is all new. Like, your life is everything. Because what I've experienced is usually two people that are kind of have a lot of agreements. They come and one of them has a brand new, really high powered job, and the other one goes down in the social status, which is like a stay at home parent for the time being, at least before they can get a job, or maybe their visa doesn't allow it. And so their social standing changes like this, like right from when they get off the plane. And it just starts this path that is really, really confusing, but also it takes the strongest couples and just puts them through the ringer. And so I think acknowledging that from the beginning and having some intention behind it. And I think this is where your practice starts. You really want to get people, as they're making this change, and having them do it a bit more intentionally, which I think is really powerful. As in your lifetime, having these conversations and having it be intentional can make something really, really special. And so will you describe that a little bit? Like your ideal, you sit down with a couple. What do you tell them? How do you help them map this out?
So processes are very individual because, as I was saying, it really much depends on what they bring into the session. So some couples may have accumulated a lot of resentment. They may have been traveling for a long time, and all those changes that you were acknowledging may have happened, but in parallel lives, like they were not discussed. There were no points where they were explained. And I'm afraid to say so, but it is the truth. We live in a world of masks. Like we all put those huge masks on our faces, depending on where we expect it to be and how we are expected to behave, and we are very little time authentic, and we are very little time connected to our real needs and what's going on for real. So those changes happen, but in kind of the subconscious of the person. So even though they have been, because there is no choice, they happen, they may not have even been reflected properly in the relationship. And so when they come to me, they are in that big crisis and they don't even know where to start. So it takes a long time to kind of unbuild everything that each individual couple will bring on the table and see, okay, so where do we start, right? So do we start with maybe what you were describing before? Maybe I didn't even want to have a global mobile life. Like you just dragged me into it. Okay, so let's start with this one because that's your first block in your pile. So it very much depends on how tall is that tower and how intense they are, and how much it has to do with what we were saying before with that unconscious path that they may have followed also, that they were not even connected to their essence and to what they really wanted to do. But once it's settled, then it requires a lot of, I always like to just to turn them into children, right? Because we tend to be much more kind of kind with children. We give them many more opportunities to maybe be upset, to be sad, to not feel happy with something, right? So I ask them to see each other as two children, as you were saying, that are getting to know each other, that are experiencing life for the first time, and that have so many things to say. And then to be curious about it instead of judging it. So instead of judging, oh, you shouldn't be feeling that way, or you shouldn't be saying that, instead of saying,
yeah, you live in the Bahamas. Like, you can't be mad.
Yeah. So it's more about be curious and ask, why did you feel it that way? Because maybe the Bahamas is exactly the place where I wanted to be, but maybe you want to live in the Himalaya, and the Bahama was never your dream. And it can be as beautiful as it is, but it's never the place where you would have gone to live. So it is about being curious and listening to the other. And then, as you were mentioning, indeed, the final goal is to rewrite that life project. So now that I know you for who you are today, and that you know me for who I am today, with my back experiences, with my present project, how do we build a shared life together?
Yeah, it's beautiful. And at the beginning, we mentioned you're a sex therapist as well. So this obviously plays in to that, like, heavily. But do you have... I always say that moving abroad messes with your polarity. I don't know if that makes sense to you. And so when you're talking about this play and this process, I can imagine that that's one way that you can bring play back in. But as a sex therapist, what do you see? How do you see international living affecting that part of a relationship? I mean, obviously it affects all parts, but like, I want to talk to you a little bit about how it is affected, and then how you bring that in to the international couples.
So the thing is that sexuality in general, like sex in general, is so taboo. Like we still don't talk about it.
We're talking about it now. We're talking about it now.
So I thank you for that, because it's like, yeah, so even couples that come to me with a specific clinical sex advice motive, they're like, okay, so how do I put that down? It's like, you contact me for that, so just go ahead and share with me. It's going to be okay. Like, I'm not going to judge you. There is nothing that is going to be right or wrong. There is your individual experience of your sexuality that apparently is causing you a problem. So we have to find a way for you to enjoy it again, for you to feel at ease with it. So many times, because it's something that is so difficult to talk about, it's like the last topic you will bring even to a therapist. Like I very much doubt that therapies that are not sex therapies on their kind of description will get into the topic at all. Like I have even colleagues of mine say, no, I just talk about communication issues and that's it. It's like, okay, well then you probably forget something that to me as a sex therapist is essential to the well-being of the couple, because that's when they actually get fully reconnected, right? When you get in that intimate moment where you reconnect completely and you are absolutely in the moment with that other person, that's when everything can go much better. But so many times what I see, unfortunately, is that they may have sexual encounters, so they may have sex. So if you ask them for the frequency that they have relationships, they'll say, well, 2 times a week or once per week. So they're not off all these statistics, right? They seem to be doing fine. When you ask about, and how does it go? How does it make you feel? And then they say, oh, well, I don't know. And then many times it was physiological, right? Well, we need it. Or then some other times they'll say, well, I don't know. Yes, I like it. It's kind of a moment where everything, the tension gets out. So they do experience the physiological release. But then when you kind of scratch in, it's like, okay, but then what happens? Do you actually reconnect with each other? Do you actually stay together after you had sex? And they very often say, oh, you know what? Now that you asked the question, I'm actually in my head, even when having sex. I'm not actually there. Like I'm performing, obviously. And those that have problem, then they will tell you that's the origin of their lack of performance and their need for support. But many times, even for those where sex seems to be there, it's just there as another routine, but not as something special that fully reconnects them, that allow them to be special to each other, right? And go beyond that accompanyingship. Like you want to be something more than your life companion. You want to be something deeper. You want to be that special person that smells different, that feels different, that takes you to another space, because an orgasm it's very special, and it requires for you to be fully engaged in what is happening, right? To be fully fulfilling and releasing. So I do see a lot of disconnection from their body and a lot of mental sex, if you want so to call it.
Yeah. And do you think that that's so? When I talk about people living internationally or living life intentionally, I really think that we have life, and I think you've spoken to this very well in some of your content. We're living life in a more intense way already. And some of that requires you to turn off your sensitivity or go through hard things and just kind of plow through. So do you, for lack of a better word, sorry, plow through, but like just kind of go and do hard things to get to, let's say, moving internationally to a new country. You kind of just have to go. And so do you think it's harder maybe to turn that off, especially when in the relationship you've done that for so long just to get to what you've been doing? So coming back together is actually something that we're maybe not as practiced at after these hard pushes or these hard things. Do you think that's part of it? Do you think that's part of why you see it this way?
So definitely so the more you have accumulated, and as you said, got used to that, the more difficult it's going to be to actually unplug you from that system, because it's become a habit, and neurologically our brain works to diminish the amount of energy that it uses, so it creates patterns. So it's like, this is what I know, so if I always do things the same way, then I don't have to think about it, I don't have to use new energy to do things in a different way. So definitely, if it's something that has been there installed for a longer time, it's going to take a lot more work to disinstall it, but it's not impossible. Like, we know neuroplasticity is something that is available at all ages, but it requires a lot of intention. And coming back to what you were saying before, my whole intention here is to actually make people acknowledge that you can do things differently if you give yourself the time to do so. Like, it's not because you're going to come with me, and that I I very much highlighted when they started working with me. It's like, it's not the time that you're with me that is going to change your relationship. Get that straight. It's the time you're going to do things differently at home that is going to make the change. Like, I'm here just to highlight where are those main changes that we have to address and help you to put some order into it. But it's up to you to now intentionally change the way you do things. And the main thing that our fast life styles on the top of global mobility and challenges have is a lack of time.
Lack of
We
time.
need time.
Yeah. So I think ideally a couple, whether they have children or not, would come together, decide very intentionally, maybe with the help of someone like you, where they're moving, what their agreements are going to be. And then that is a little bit of self-protection for their relationship and doing things intentionally, recognizing the hard, agreeing to the hard things, but also getting excited about the new life. What do you recommend? Let's say a couple's been doing it unintentionally for many years. If they come to you or they don't come to you, from my perspective, it's all part of the plan, right? Like you come together, you're co-creating this existence together. But what is the question that can start this conversation? Over a bottle of wine, you've realized you're off track. They haven't come to you, or your wait list is too long. Tell me the one question or the two questions that you would ask in a couple if you want to start this conversation with your partner to be more intentional. So let's say you've determined you've been unintentional, you want to get back on track or on track at all into living more intentionally. What is a couple of questions that can start a conversation that can get people thinking along this line? Can you think of ones that you would ask if it was you?
So the funny thing is that the first question I always ask my patients, and they can probably relate if they're listening to your podcast, is that, how are you feeling? Just have how are you feeling instead of how are you doing? It's such a very, very simple question that makes such a big difference. Like, it is not the same, how are you doing? How was your day? Instead of asking about what have you been doing? What have you accomplished? What is left? Just how are you feeling? How are you feeling? How are you actually feeling about what's going on? Are you feeling exhausted? Are you feeling scared? But so many people are lacking emotional intelligence and even words to put words out there and express what they're feeling, that a lot of therapy comes with a lot of emotional education, like to learn wordings, to specifically and intentionally find a word that is expressing what you're feeling. Like, my children are very wise and they have a very wide vocabulary. And sometimes I will come and say, oh, so you're feeling sad? And say, no, I'm not sad. I'm disappointed, which is
Different.
very different. It is different. So it is about finding those words that will make the other one understand specifically what you're going through. But you first have to know what is going on for you, and you probably have to get yourself a lot of emotional education and to find those words for yourself to identify what's going on. And then from that deeper connection, then the conversation will flow in a different way.
Yeah. So if someone, and I think that's a pattern, right? Like, you start that slowly, like, how are you feeling? How are you feeling? Like, once a week, once a day, once a month, whatever you want. And then what's the next question? Like, hey, Like I would probably say to my partner, things are off track. I don't feel like we have common goals. I feel like we've been just on autopilot. How can we come together around this? But that makes you the leader, and you don't always want to be the leader in this conversation.
Yeah, but if you hear yourself, you just start in saying, I am feeling things are off track. Are you actually talking about yourself, or are you describing the situation?
Yeah, I think I would be feeling like we're not on the same page. And so I want to get on the same page with my partner.
But you are describing a situation. You're not talking about how you're feeling. Mm-hmm. It's pretty hard to actually connect to our feeling. So if you were to tell me, try to tell me your actual feeling. So this is kind of the superficial thing. Things are off track. Okay, that's the first layer of the onion. So let's take the second onion layer. And you were saying, I have the feeling we're on two different pages. Okay, now let's go down another one. And how does that make you feel?
Yeah, it makes you feel scared. It makes you feel dysregulated. Makes you feel, all the things. I'm feeling bad. I need you to help me feel better.
Exactly. But then you're already getting already closer. Now you're showing yourself much more vulnerable. And you're saying, I'm feeling scared because I feel disconnected from you. So that's much deeper already. Mm-hmm. So from there, what can we do? Well, now the next question is, what do you think your partner could do for you to feel better?
Yeah, acknowledge that that there's something going on for them. Because if you're feeling disconnected, it would be nice to hear their feelings.
Okay, but so if you are already doing that first exercise, right, of saying, how are you feeling? And you're connected to what's the other one feeling. But as we just did with your example, right, going deeper, right? You really have to show yourself vulnerable and not only say, I'm feeling off track, not staying at we are on different pages, because that's a descriptive. That's a description of what you are seeing, what you're experiencing, but you're not showing your emotions. You're feeling scared because you feel disconnected. And that's super powerful. And from there, then you can ask, your partner can ask you, what can I do for you to feel less scared? And then the first thing that you're saying is like, I would like to know how you're feeling, right? Because if your partner say, well, I don't feel disconnected. I'm so sorry to hear so. Yeah. I am not feeling disconnected. So I'm obviously missing something out because I don't feel disconnected. I'm fine. I'm maybe, I don't know, stressed by work, or I am lacking of sleep and I'm feeling tired. So you're going to know how your partner is feeling. But then you can have that second question. So now, what can I do? So what can your partner do for you to feel differently? So maybe you can say, okay, so maybe you feel okay and you feel connected, but I would need a little bit more evening together. I don't want you to be out every evening. I really need you more time with me. And, or I need you to help me with the kids, or I would like to have some dinner at, some evening in the week where we don't have them with the kids, where we're you and we can have deeper conversation, because I'm done talking about superheroes, about school, and I want adult conversation because I spend my days with children. So then you can be much more intentional and specific in your demand, and you can more easily get what you actually need from your partner.
And what if your ask is, I need a plan? I need us to be more intentional about our next move or our next year. Like that's the thing that needs to be co-created, I think, in these situations. Sometimes, yes, the daily stuff, the daily asks, but the next level I'm talking about is how can you get your partner to co-create. If you've done things unintentionally, how can you make the next few years or your long-term destination more intentional? How do you get to that conversation?
So the first thing is precisely to just make a point that that's what you're feeling. So in that case, it will be, I'm feeling scared. And it wouldn't be because you're disconnected. So maybe the feeling that comes together with that scaredness is like, I'm feeling scared because of the uncertainty on how things are going to go next. Normally that fear and that uncertainty comes with the baggage, because as you were saying, the last time it didn't go well. So I'm worried about the next one. And especially if you are a global mobile family that has regular moves, so you know your project is going to be for 4 or 5 years, you start anticipating when the day is about to arrive as, oh gosh, there it comes again. And is it going to be as a disaster as it was last time? So it is about being transparent to your partner and saying, this is what I need. You know what? I'm feeling scared. And the reason why I'm feeling scared is because last time I didn't tell you. I just coped with it. I just went along with everything. But actually, it was hell for me. And I had everything in and I did it everything by myself. But you know what? I don't want that to happen anymore. And maybe you're going to be revealing something to your partner because maybe you put up that mask so well that even your partner that kind of clearly was distracted with many other real stuff, because I don't want either to say that, oh, like traveling partners and highly demanding job partners are just not caring. It's not that they're not caring. Sometimes they are really unavailable. Like it is a reality that they have no capacity to take anything else unless you make a clear demand. And in those couples where there is a clear intention to stay together and to be the best partner that we want for our partner, there is room for those conversations. And in those that there is no such thing, I must be clear too. There are some couples that come to me just to find a way out and to divorce. They don't only come to actually spend their life together. It's like, well, you know what? If she's not happy with what I'm giving to her and it's not sufficient, there she goes. I can divorce. So it is not always the case that you have a partner that is willing to listen to you. But if you do, you first have to give them the chance to listen to you and not keep everything for yourself, but create a space yourself. So it's super important to stop thinking that the other one can read your mind, or that couples that love each other are meant to know that there need to be some space for each other to communicate. No. There is not such a thing. That happens in Hollywood. In real life, if you want a conversation to happen, you have to make it happen. It's your responsibility to make it happen, to put it on their agenda if they're super busy, to block a time frame and say, this is me time. We need to talk because I need, as you were suggesting, to have a plan for the next move that is coming now in 6 months and ticking.
Yeah. Or in some cases, whenever we decide. But yeah, it's part of the process. Okay, so I want to switch gears a little bit. This is all super helpful. And I think doing this intentionally, I think what I want to say is I think that it's better for everybody if you do it intentionally, even if there's some stuff that you don't want to acknowledge. Maybe we won't be able to have as highly paid positions, but if our goal is to stay together and have the best for our children, we need to be intentional and move with intention so that everyone in the family is healthy. Or we need to decide not to do that. And I think that's my goal overall, is to help people understand that they are doing something extraordinary already there's no map for. And there's people like you, and there's people all around us that are doing this. They're doing it alone. And I think everyone has similar struggles, pressures, and like highs and lows. But what I love about what you're doing is it's specific to this population, and you are acknowledging and actually doing research on the fact that it is, in fact, more. It brings out more. We have specific needs. We have specific things that are not unique. Right? We're all kind of doing it together. So what I want to switch gears to is your work on highly sensitive people. And this is what you're doing your PhD in. And so I want you to tell me a little bit about first how you came to this work, and then what changed in your perception, since this is your third year now of doing this research. And so tell us a little bit about that, if you wouldn't mind, briefly.
Yes. So I actually learned about sensory processing sensitivity, which is a trait of our temperament. So it's not a disorder. It's something that we are seeing more and more. We have more and more data, let's say, that suggests that it's probably about 30% of the population. So we started with a 15, with studies of Jung, then it was 20%. And now we're kind of seeing it's probably a third part of the population that is highly sensitive. And when you're highly sensitive, basically what it means is that your nervous system is much more sensitive to stimuli. So it can be stimuli that is from your environment. So it can be the lights, can be the noises, it can be the texture of your clothes, but it's also the stimuli that you feel inside. So your emotions, for instance, if you're hungry, if you're tired, if you're hot, if you're cold. So all kind of stimuli that you can imagine. Our brain have some areas that are much more active when you're highly sensitive than when you're not. For instance, the neural neurons that are in our prefrontal cortex that are the one responsible for us to empathize, to be able to empathize with other people's emotions, are much more active in the highly sensitive people, which means that if we are surrounded by people that are, for instance, in the context of expatriation, highly stressed, those people that are highly sensitive are going to be experiencing their own internal stress plus the one of the people around them. So you can think about the experience being possibly very much more overwhelming than for those that are not, that may be still experiencing the overwhelmness of their own experience, but at least not being contagious by the one of others. And on the top of that, having their own experience in being less intense than for those that are highly sensitive.
Okay. And so your research is around motherhood and highly sensitive. So the three things, I think I have this right, is expatriation, motherhood, and being highly sensitive, and how those things play together. And so tell me a little bit about your research and the data you're collecting.
So I started my data collection actually during COVID. All these projects started as a book, even if now it's going to be an international thesis. It started as a book because I started collecting data from my own patients. At the beginning, I was seeing that many of my patients were highly sensitive. And even though there are some people that believe that everybody that we see in consultation are highly sensitive because that's what we experience, that they're high sensitive in terms that they are activated emotionally intensively because they're going through something necessarily. What we see is that many highly sensitive people will come much more to therapy just because they will struggle much more with the intensity of the lifestyle that we all go through, this very fast life full of stimuli, moving, and not having the time to adjust to all the things that we go through, but also because we're much more connected with what is going on with ourselves, like our intuition, our deep processing will bring us to much more questioning what is going on. So it is important to understand that it is not because we see many clients in our consultation that seem to be highly sensitive that all of them are going to be highly sensitive in the neurological trait that we're talking about. But it may be explained by something else, by something that they are going through. So my study started because I did indeed had many highly sensitive clients that were highly in mobility. And I started thinking, well, maybe there is something else that explains that sensitivity, because actually the main fact of moving abroad and moving as a mom and turning into a mom is already overwhelming per se. Like, you don't have to have a neurological system that is sensitive to actually be overwhelmed. So I started first interviewing moms, highly sensitive and non-highly sensitive, but in my research, I'm focusing on the results of the highly sensitive moms to see what were their coping mechanism and how did they deal with it and how intensively did they experience their process of adjusting to becoming a mom, that beautiful word that is called matrescence. So matrescence comes from anthropology and is similar to adolescence because when a woman turns into a mom, there is a change that is very close to adolescence. There is a biological change, there is a physiological, neurological change, and identity change that comes along with the baby, right? So it is about acknowledging that when a woman goes to a different country and at the same time is turning into a mom, there is so much going on that explaining it, but, you're highly sensitive is not sufficient. So I really wanted to see whether we could measure properly what's sensitivity and what's something else. So what is explaining what? So my thesis is looking at coping strategies that mom may share, personality traits that go beyond that trait, but also the big five main personality traits that we all know, is looking about the length of the emotional intensity that stays in your body, about how much you're affected by your support network that you have, by your spouse support. And so it's a very intense thesis that aim to actually acknowledge what it is like to turn into a mom in a foreign country.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you're living multiple life stages at once or life moments at once. And so I think that's really important research. And what would you hope it would, if it is indeed
what you think it is, what is your hope for it? Is it just in measuring that it makes it able to be quantified and then able to be more supported by companies, by governments, by all these things? Because right now there's not enough support, would you say?
So the first thing for me when it comes specifically to sensory processing sensitivity, it is to actually contribute to the literature that we have and to make sure that we are speaking about the same thing when we are identifying the highly sensitive moms. Are we actually talking about neuro condition that is highly activated to the stimuli in their environment and their own? Or are we talking about sensitivity that is a result of an overwhelming, as you were saying, life stage that comes together with the move and so on? So that's the first thing, to contribute to literature in that sense. But then after that, something that I love about the origin of the study of sensory processing sensitivity is how Dr. Elaine Aron says that whatever is good for highly sensitive people is good for everyone. So we're just highly sensitive people are just at the end of a spectrum of sensitivity. But whatever life conditions, so environmental condition, time to process things that we can give to any human being, if we kind of adjust them to the needs of a highly sensitive person, it's going to be good for all the other ones. So I am trying to highlight the most sensitive needs possible, those very sensitive moments in life that are expatriation and motherhood together, in order to give indeed not only families that I work with and that my colleagues work with kind of a clear guideline of what are those essential environmental and personal conditions that need to be addressed for the success, especially mentally talking success, right? The mental health success and then physiological that comes together with it, but also for the success of the family, of the marriage, of the project that they have. And in the end, it has an impact on the companies, right? And all these organizations that are moving families around, because what they want is a success, and the success of the project necessarily comes together with the successful adjustment of the people that are going to perform this project. And many times the spouses are just forgotten in the project and they're not well supported enough for it to succeed properly. So it requires a clear acknowledgement of what's going on when moving families around to a deeper level. So that's why I'm looking into personality, because indeed every person is different and they're going to have their own cocktail, as I like to call it, of personal trait, personal background. I'm also counting on even coping strategies, right, that we may have acquired throughout our lifestyle. But there are some essentials that
what are those? Like, what would you, if you had to give like 2 or 3 things, or 1 or 2 things that companies can do today to support the children and families of a person that they are bringing to a new market? What would you tell them? What are the essentials that you can't be without?
So there are some things that I'm not allowed to disclose from my results, because when your thesis is not out there, you're not allowed to talk about any results until the papers are out there. So I can't talk specifically about what I'm finding in my research, but I can talk about what I can see in my practice. And this for sure has to do, first of all, about visibility. Like, partners and children have to be visible to the companies, and not only the role of the person that you're employing and that you are going to set in the project. You have to see the whole structure, because as I was saying, the partner that is going to accompany that person that is going to perform for you is going to be the emotional anchor for that performer. So if you don't assure that anchor is going to be well, your project might still not work out well, because he's not going to have what he needs at home. And if the whole structure is not well settled, then the whole project may not work well. So it is important to have into account that the family is part of the project as much as the person that is going to have the role. Then it is essential to acknowledge that the process of expatriation and the project that they're going to leave there starts the moment they're given that project. So before they even move, everything is going to start changing. Like, you don't you don't behave the same way when you know you're going to move. You start your grieving process. You start everything. So acknowledging that they're going to need some support to navigate those changes even before they go, that's essential to me. And as I was sharing with you before we started recording, that's my final goal. I really hope companies, different organizations that move families abroad can gain consciousness that it is not a little thing to move a whole family abroad, that it takes a lot of energy, a lot of emotional engagement and kind of shaking inside, that if you don't give the right support, it can mess up big time. So it is important to see it.
Yeah, it's important to see it. I love that. It's important. It starts with acknowledgement, right? And I think one reason I love your research so much is that it starts with being acknowledged, and everything else goes from there, right? Okay. I think that you've given us so much today. I think we can wrap up there. And I have a feeling I'm going to be bugging you for a second interview to talk about grief and the grieving process. So I think that, and we've covered so much today that I really appreciate it. The depth of your knowledge is vast. So I want to let people know that if they are wanting to talk through some of the stuff, you are taking clients, and also for companies, they can also come to you. And so there's that. We'll put that all at the bottom of the show notes. LinkedIn right now is the best way to get a hold of you, and your new website's coming shortly. But we'll put everything in the show notes and at the bottom of this episode. But please reach out to Karina. But also, I want everyone to realize that they're not alone. I think you've covered some really good things that maybe are more universal, that can make us all feel like there's nothing wrong with us. We're just going through something big.
Exactly. Really big, much bigger than just changing houses and learning a new language.
Yeah, cool. Hey, thanks for your time today, Karina. I really appreciate it. And we'll have you on again.
Thank you so much for your time, Mickelle.
Okay, that's it for today. I hope you've enjoyed our show. For the latest insights on living internationally, join us at houseofperegrine.com to find out how you can connect with our community. Let's craft our life story with intention together.